here's a Scared for Real's Legacy Special.
And we return to our discussion of our favorite films from 1949. You want to talk about your next film of 1949, Adam?
So, next film, again, we're going to do something a little different. I'm kind of stretching myself.
Stretching?
Yeah.
Well, I stretched myself with White Heat, which was really not in our wheelhouse.
No. And, again, here's another really first for us, Chris, something that we have, an avenue we haven't really explored yet, and that is the world of Walt Disney.
That's true.
All right.
But the story you're about to tell us, we have discussed it in 1999.
We have. So, but I mean, when I say Walt Disney, we're talking Walt Disney before Marvel Universe.
Mm-hmm. When Disney was good.
We're talking Walt Disney before Disney World, before Disneyland.
Just say before when it was good.
Even before Cinderella.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, in 1949, Disney had two features.
That's it.
That they were going to produce as full-length movies.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided to cut them both down to shorts and put them into an anthology movie. First movie was The Wind in the Willows, narrated by Basil Rathbone.
That's right. I forgot about The Wind in the Willows. Oh my gosh.
And the second movie is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, narrated by the legendary Bing Crosby. Now,
that's right. I forgot Bing Crosby narrated that.
Yes. Now, again, this is before Disney ruled the world. So they also had a distributing partnership with RKO at the time. So this is a Disney RKO production. And yes, was released under the title The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. So
what a title.
Yeah. So again,
I don't think I've seen. I remember seeing clips of it. I don't think I've actually seen that in its entirety.
Which one?
The Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Oh yeah, I mean, nowadays usually you either see one or the other, The Wind in the Willows or Sleepy Hollow. But so yeah, it's a narrative. We got Bing Crosby narrating this classic story. Again, we've talked about the Headless Horseman story before, the Ichabod Crane, when we talked about Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow.
Right.
It's the same story, except this is more traditional to the book. Ichabod Crane is a school teacher.
Right.
He's not an investigator like a Jack the Ripper type investigator from New York. But again, hitting us.
There's no burgomaster.
No, hitting us a little bit close to home. I mean,
right.
Sleepy Hollow is about 2 hours away from where we sit.
Right. Have you ever been out there?
Sleepy Hollow, I've passed through. I haven't stopped in. It's
the trees look really cool in Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a character in the town itself. It's like you see the trees have a creepy vibe.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
And for Halloween geeks like me, they have a incredible hunt, the Headless Horseman hunt out there. That it's on my bucket list to go check out. But I mean, like we live in a great area, Chris. We got Sleepy Hollow to the southwest of us, and then to the southeast of us, we got Salem. Right. And they're both about the same drive.
Right.
2.5, 3 hours. So I'm not going to really go into detail because we did talk a lot about the story of Sleepy Hollow a couple weeks ago, but it is cool to acknowledge, Disney's the first screen adaptation of Sleepy Hollow in this short, narrated by Bing Crosby. Again, not going to beat the story to death. We've already gone through it.
Right. But it's just the theme. Like if you really dig deep into the meaning and the themes behind The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, you would not think it'd make for a family Disney film.
No,
because it is pretty pretty racy.
Yeah,
for a Disney film,
Yeah,
dealing with adultery and rape and all that kind of stuff. You just wouldn't think that would make into a family film, which is very entertaining.
Right. Well, I mean, for that matter, I mean, all the Grimm stories that they turned into feature length, like Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Cinderella, they would go on to make Disney what Disney is.
Right.
I mean, they all, from those Grimm fairy tales, man, have dark histories.
Right.
And dark content. So, I mean, this is just Disney doing what Disney does.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you can argue if that's the genius of Walt. And I'm not talking about modern Disney. I'm the genius of Walt Disney.
This is when Walt Disney actually turned out good story. Yeah.
And, the impact of this short is still felt today. If you go to Disneyland or Disney World, you're going to see the Ichabod Crane character, especially at Halloween time during Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween.
Right.
The parade is usually led by the Headless Horseman, and Ichabod Crane follows. So it's still around. It's still relevant today. And, I mean, how cool is that? You got a double feature narrated by two legends. I mean, we talk a lot about horror. I mean, Basil Rathbone.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird that he didn't do the horror story.
Yeah, it is very, because he had the voice. He very, very, very versatile, not only performer, but his voice could be very friendly, but it also could be very evil too.
Yeah,
he was such a brilliant performer. I mean, Basil Rathbone, probably the best Sherlock Holmes, but man, he could play the best villain too.
Absolutely, he could. Absolutely, he could. But again, let's not discredit Bing Crosby.
No, Bing Crosby was great. That's for sure.
So there's my next pick, Disney's Sleepy Hollow. If you haven't seen it, treat yourself. It's a fun short watch,
right?
Especially if we're now in August. We're getting close to that Halloween season, man.
Yeah.
Start getting excited for the fall.
See, I watch horror movies all the time. It doesn't have to be on Halloween, but
me too. I mean, it's primarily what I watch, but still, there's certain movies that I'll watch that will just get me in a mood for the time of the year. And Sleepy Hollow fits in that category.
So you watch the Tim Burton one, and then you follow it with the short, right?
Sometimes, right? Sometimes.
All right, next on this list, I guess I'm on a film noir kick here, but. Yeah. Because this one is just one of the most influential films of all time, The Third Man. Have you ever heard of this movie?
I have heard of it. Have not seen it.
Well, it's directed by Carol Reed. Yes, this is the same Carol Reed who did Oliver the Musical that won him all these Oscars.
Wow.
Same guy. And it's written by Graham Greene, who the guy wrote one amazing crime drama after another. He was just one of the greatest writers of all time. No, we're not talking about Graham Greene from Dances with Wolves. We're talking about the writer. You got Joseph Cotten, who is probably one of the most underrated actors. You watch Citizen Kane, and then you watch him. Did you ever watch Hitchcock's Shadow of a Doubt?
Yes.
I mean, to go from Citizen Kane to playing the romantic leading man in The Magnificent Ambersons a year later, and then playing the part of the Merry Widow Murderer. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is just, when they talk about versatility, no one really talks about Joseph Cotten. He had a very interesting career. He even played Baron Frankenstein and Lady Frankenstein decades later. But yeah, here he's technically the main character, but it's interesting. Harry Lime is the main character, although you don't see Harry Lime until like an hour into the movie. It's just one of those. They've done it with Silence of the Lambs, where it's like the leading man of the film is just built up. You don't know he's there, but he is, and he isn't. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
But yeah, you've got, again, post-World War II, Allied occupied Vienna, and I think some of the film was shot in Vienna too. You get to see some of the ruins in there. So it had a really, this is definitely a post-World War II film, and it's just beautifully shot. And you've got this American writer. He writes all of these serial novels. They're kind of crime. He calls them kind of like throwaway novels.
Yeah.
But he's got his fans over there, but he's kind of broke, and he arrives in the city to accept a job with his old childhood friend, Harry Lime, only to learn that he's dead. That's how the movie starts. He gets over there. He's expecting to meet Harry Lime, and he's nowhere to be found. And he goes to the address that he's given. Oh, he's dead. Huh.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Right.
Your best friend gives you a job. You go to him, and he's dead. I mean, that's what a way to start a movie.
Yeah.
And this is all from, it's interesting because technically Harry Lime is the focus of the movie, but it's all told from Joseph Cotton character. His name is Holly Martins. So he stays in Vienna. He's kind of like, he's finding out things about Harry Lime that he's never known before, and it doesn't seem like he just died. He was murdered. That's what he comes to the conclusion. And of course, what would a great story be without being infatuated with the best friend's girl?
Of course.
And you have Alida Valli, who was one of the prominent character actresses. She was in a lot of different films, and a lot of them can be considered cult films. I don't know if you ever saw the French Gothic horror film, Eyes Without a Face. Remember Billy Idol did a song?
Yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah, she was in that movie. But, I mean, I'm telling you, man, the black and white cinematography, it's probably best used in this film. Now, Carol Reed, just a couple of years before this, did the Irish Republican Army crime drama Odd Man Out, which if you're wanting to see James Mason do another different role than he's ever done before, Odd Man Out, and the use of lights, shadows, and black and white, he got his start with that, and then boom, he got his practice with that movie, and this movie it's probably some of the best use of lighting ever in a movie.
Oh wow!
And we were just talking about German expressionism.
Yeah,
this was highly influenced by German expressionist film, and wouldn't you know, the cinematography was done by Robert Krasker, who worked with German expressionist films. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Carol Reed knew what he was doing here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got the combined use of ruined locations. You got the style, the cynicism at the start of the Cold War, and you've got the probably, again, the best lighting ever used in a movie. I mean, people are still using this as probably the best examples of cinematography in a black and white film. Yeah, I mean, Graham Greene wrote this as a treatment for the screenplay, and then you've got like an interesting type jazzy zither score. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever heard the zither being used in any music, but this was like a top 40 hit back in the day.
Wow.
The Harry Lime theme. And we're using it underneath. We used it underneath as we started talking about The Third Man. But it literally topped the international music charts in 1950. I mean, it's considered probably one of the greatest film scores of all time, but like you couldn't get away from it because they had the radio show of the Harry Lime Show, which Orson Welles, I think, his Mercury production, I think he did some of those shows.
Yeah,
where he, reprised his role of Harry Lime. But it's just such an important film in history, and I really don't want to take away too much because you haven't seen the movie either, Ed.
No, I have not.
Well, let me tell you something. The last 50 minutes of this film, it's just like boom. There's something that happens right in the middle that just like wow, and it's not like as like Psycho, like over a decade later. I mean, that was just like really like loud, This
Yeah.
a lot of subtle things happen through it that are major things, and the reactions to some of these things are so subtle. And the ending was just like even when my wife first watched it, she was like, "Wow." The final scene is just, again, I'm not going to spoil this for you because some of the people you know in your life have probably seen this movie, but you just gotta just watch it. Unfortunately, it's out of print. The Criterion edition is out of print. I have the old DVD from the Criterion collection. They made a Blu-ray, I think it was like 10, 12 years ago, but that's long out of print now. Mm-hmm. I think some other studios have picked it up. You can get it on Blu-ray somewhere. I just can't remember the name of the studio where you can pick it up from, but it's just so iconic. The Third Man. I highly recommend it.
What Third Man?
Yeah, The Third Man. And again, that has a lot to do with the plot twist. That's all I'm going to say.
I would hope so. It's the title of the movie.
Yeah. I really don't want to spoil. That's one movie, Adam, I will not spoil for you.
Okay.
And you have one more, right?
Yes, my one more. I've kept my last two picks purposely short because I wanted to get into this one a little bit more into detail. I'll just put it right now. If I had to pick a favorite movie of 49, this is going to be it for me. Again, something that we really haven't we've mentioned, haven't really done a deep dive in, which I know that for some of the other movies in this category we will eventually. But my final pick is going to be Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer, Boris Karloff.
Yeah, this is one I haven't seen, actually.
You have not seen... No. You're missing out. This is because it's not really it's got the horror vibe to it, but it's more of a murder mystery.
Yeah, it's like it's like a comedy, too.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Abbott and Costello. Yeah. It's one of the... I mean, Abbott and Costello, just in case you're not aware, probably the earliest forms of horror comedy. Well, all right, so Abbott and Costello, they were a vaudeville duo. Right. And so they come from vaudeville, and yeah, they started getting big with I don't remember what their first movie. I want to say it's
oh, don't worry about that, because for our purposes they did like several of these horror comedies through Universal, right?
Well, this is their second one.
Yeah,
this is their second. Yes.
They did a few of them though, I think.
Yeah, well, they did a lot of them, which we can talk about it. We're going to focus on this one though first. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Abbott and Costello, everybody knows Who's on First, the famous skit. So they really break big with their movie previous to this, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Right.
And linking to this, so this is their follow-up in that category, the horror comedy category. And funny enough, Boris Karloff was originally offered to play the Frankenstein monster in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. He refused because at the time the Frankenstein monsters they were projecting on screen were basically caricatures of what he made the monster to be. So
he did play, if I'm not mistaken, this is unrelated, but Arsenic and Old Lace. Because there is like a Boris Karloff type character, and I think he did play it on stage, but when it came to the movie, he couldn't do it, or he
was contracted by another. Right. He was already doing another movie, so he couldn't do the movie. But
but he did do it on stage a little bit, and they got Raymond Massey to do the film version. But,
Arsenic and Old Lace, yes. Yeah. So anyway, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein come out. It's kind of like the last big hurrah for our classic monsters until Creature of the Black Lagoon comes out about 5 years later. So anyway, but Karloff, being the sport that he was, refused to do the movie, but did promote the movie. The movie becomes a huge hit, and Karloff signs on to do 2 movies. This one, and then Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
That's right, yeah.
So this comes out first, and basically it's set in a hotel, and following the murder of a prominent lawyer within the hotel's bellboy is kept in custody as suspects in the murder manipulate him into signing a false confession. And then in the meantime, corpses keep piling up, and it's mayhem. So you got Lou Costello, who's playing the bellboys, Freddie Phillips, and then Bud Abbott, his partner, playing the hotel detective, kind of like hotel security.
Right.
So he's working with Abbott, Lou Costello, to clear his name basically throughout this movie. And it's just a whole bunch of fun. Again, you have Abbott and Costello running around trying to hide bodies as they come across them, so it doesn't look like Lou Costello's committing the murders.
Right.
You have Boris Karloff as playing Swami Templar, and
he's got almost like his. It's not exactly like his mummy costume, but it's similar.
Yeah,
in a way.
He looks like he's got the turban. He's in. He has a wonderful scene with Lou Costello where he's using hypnotism to try to get Lou Costello to commit suicide, and the will of Lou Costello of not wanting to die keeps thwarting every attempt, and it's absolutely hilarious watching these two play off each other. So yeah, as the movie plays out, you find out that it was one big conspiracy, involving all the guests in the hotel, and Lou Costello gets his name cleared, and we live happily ever after. But interestingly enough, this movie was originally intended for Bob Hope.
Really?
Yeah.
Because Bob Hope had done some of the horror comedies too.
Yeah, because this was the script was really called Easy Does It. With Bob Hope in mind, and then again after the success of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, they rework it for
cash in.
Yeah, they rework it for their new big money makers.
Right.
And again, another interesting thing about the title is it's not about Abbott and Lou Costello meet the killer Boris Karloff. It's supposed to be about Abbott and Lou Costello meet the killer. But they wanted to cash in on the Karloff name, so they put his name on the poster underneath the title as a third billing, and that's how people just read the title.
Yeah, so it kind of became synonymous.
And it just stuck.
Yeah.
So...
so it's technically Abbott and Costello meet the killer.
Yes. And then again,
comma, Boris Karloff was added.
Period, and then Karloff. Yeah.
Yeah. But they changed it to like I think some of it like comma Boris Karloff.
Yeah, eventually it just got adapted to that. So, if you've never seen it, this is a really really fun movie. A bunch of vaudevillian gags. Abbott and Costello at their best, at their funniest. Again, what makes a movie like this work is the fact that what's supposed to be serious is taking serious. What's supposed to be funny is taken funny. We've talked about
just like what I was mentioning, Kind Hearts and Coronets.
Yes.
It's some of it is really serious, but it's just that one dark twisted humor. This one is just most of it is flat out humor. But the whole suicide, you take a subject like suicide and death and murder and.
It's just funny because like you see Karloff, he's trying to make Lou Costello do all these attempts to kill himself, and Karloff at one point just gets frustrated and looks at him. He's like, "All right, Freddie, how would you like to die?" And he just responds quickly, "Old age." And then Karloff just kind of throws his hands up in the air. So it's just like, and again, it's one gag after another with Abbott and Costello. They're absolutely hilarious. And again, when we've talked about other horror comedies like Ghostbusters, it all relates back to Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Because what makes these movies work is taking the monsters seriously. If the monsters weren't taken seriously in Abbott and Costello and they were made a joke and a parody, the movie would not stand as it is. And same thing with Ghostbusters. If the ghosts in Ghostbusters aren't taken seriously by the comedians and by everybody else around them, Ghostbusters doesn't work. And it's
like
the same
Monster Squad too.
And Monster Squad, exactly. All those that's what separates a terrible horror comedy like Scary Movie, and like a legit awesome movie like
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead, exactly. Yeah. And Abbott and Costello did this perfectly. Right. They knew where they needed to be, but they knew when it was time to get let the seriousness of the story be serious,
Right.
and be real to the audience,
Right.
So, and then again, Lou Costello really suffered after this movie. He collapsed with rheumatic fever.
Really?
And it would be a year before Abbott and Costello would do another movie.
Wow.
Which is Abbott and Costello in the Foreign Legion. So, they were working hard. They because you also understand they're doing their movies, but they're also still doing their touring and stand up and vaudeville act at the same time. So
they were pretty busy.
These guys were. I mean, you want to talk about top celebrities in Hollywood? I mean, Abbott and Costello were huge,
right?
Huge,
and
huge.
Not to take anything away from Bob Hope, like he was originally cast. That guy was hitting, had one big hit after another.
Sure.
Too. So it was just those were like the biggest names in comedy.
Yeah. So it's a wonderful movie. It's kind of forgotten in. Yeah,
because everyone knows Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That's the most popular one.
It's the most popular. It's the best one. I'll be honest with you. And not to take anything away from it, just didn't hit like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is an all-time classic,
right?
And because it was the first time we've ever really seen anything a comedy do paired against the monsters, and
right.
It was kind of like Ghostbusters. We wouldn't have Ghostbusters without it.
That's true.
We
wouldn't have any of them, really.
No,
this is like the dawn of the horror comedy.
Yeah, it really changed the game.
Absolutely.
Abbott and Costello. And again, they tried to double, triple, quadruple down on it, because after this, you also get, Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man, Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is another very underrated movie of theirs.
Yeah, and Boris Karloff.
And Boris Karloff is in that one.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it, again, it leans more towards crime story than horror, but it's still a wonderful watch. And again, the interaction between Karloff and Lou Costello and Bud Abbott, and just the gags alone, these guys were brilliant physical comedians,
right.
And the comedy still holds up today, 75 some odd years later.
Yeah, literally 75 years later. I talked about The Third Man, which is amongst my top 250 films of all time, and this one is definitely on that list as well. As a matter of fact, Akira Kurosawa is like, I have like top 4 filmmakers, Adam, and it's like, okay, which of the 4 are my favorite? It shuffles. Whenever I'm watching it, okay, that's my favorite filmmaker. Akira Kurosawa made 30 films in his career. 26, 27 of them could be easily considered masterpieces. And this is one of them. This is what many would consider his second, because he just did Drunken Angel a year before. That was his first official collaboration with Toshiro Mifune. And you had Takashi Shimura, who was the Drunken Angel. He was the main character. And they both come back for Stray Dog, 1949. Literally, the movie, during the credits, you see this dog panting.
Oh.
That's what it is. And I know you haven't seen a Kurosawa film, Adam, but a character in itself is the weather. Mm-hmm. All right. Seven Samurai, you've got the mud and the rain. That's a character. And then, you've got like raining downpours in Rashomon, which would come out a year later. That's the movie that would really break Kurosawa. But without Drunken Angel or Stray Dog, you wouldn't have Rashomon, and you wouldn't have all of these other masterpieces. And keep in mind, he was like, boom, this movie came out, he was just getting bigger and bigger and more successful. And that was the thing. He was not well liked in Japan at the time, Adam, because he had a lot of Western influence. Again, America occupied Japan, and he really loved the American films.
Right.
I mean, gosh, John Ford, he credits as one of his favorite directors, and they actually became good friends.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And this movie, you definitely get to see worn-torn Japan. It's not glorifying at all, actually. You get to see the slums of Japan, okay? Mm-hmm. And the movie starts off, I really think this is probably the most unique crime drama I've ever seen. I've never seen another film like it, Adam. You got this summer heat wave, kind of like what we're living in now. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just feel the heat from as you see the panting dog.
Right.
You know, it's like really hot. And it heats up even more when you've got this young detective played by Toshiro Mifune. He's newly promoted. He's a homicide detective. And he's riding on one of those bus expressway things, trolleys, if you will. And a guy runs off the trolley, and he realizes the guy stole his Colt, his gun.
Yeah.
And that's like a shameful thing in Japan. Mm-hmm. So that's the movie. He's literally looking for his Colt the whole movie. Now, does that sound like much of a plot?
No.
That's the thing. He opens up Pandora's box, and there's a lot of crime dramas that were inspired by this, and where something like that happens right at the beginning, and it's like the whole movie is centered on that. So it's like, wow, a stolen gun, and it just turns into something really major. So, I mean, he's really remorseful about the whole thing. I mean, he tries to chase the pickpocket, and he doesn't get anywhere, and he has to, like, literally, he's shamed now because he can't get it. So he reports the theft to his superior, and he encourages him to conduct an investigation into this whole theft. But I mean, he gets a lead from one of the ladies who actually traveled in the trolley with him. So he decides to go undercover, and it's probably like a 10 to 15 minute long sequence. You just see Toshiro Mifune in undercover garb, just searching the slums of Japan. And the most interesting thing about that is Ishiro Honda, who would later go on to do Godzilla. He was Kurosawa's assistant. Imagine that. It's almost like Coppola having Lucas as his assistant on The Godfather. It's that cool.
Wow.
It's that cool.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know if you knew that Lucas was an assistant on that.
I knew he was. I knew that.
But I mean, yeah, Ishiro Honda was like his assistant pretty much off and on through his career. When he got older, like Kagemusha, Ishiro Honda filmed all the battle sequences in that movie. It's just, I don't think Ishiro Honda gets enough credit because he didn't want to get into the monster genre. But we'll talk about Ishiro Honda later on. But yeah, I mean, you get this. It all depends on how you feel about it. Like if any other director filmed a 10, 15 minute sequence of just searching the slums of a city,
right,
it would be boring.
Yeah.
But Kurosawa really, he uses a lot of emotion when it comes to his action sequences. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes his action sequences so special. And you feel it more because there's so much emotion involved with it. The desperation. You got Toshiro Mifune chasing after the pickpocket right at the start of the movie. Mm-hmm. And this is a heat wave. So it's like, imagine trying to run in the heat, Adam.
Yeah.
It's
That's
a tense
crazy
situation. And he's literally searching the slums of Japan. And there's all sorts of drugs that are brought up. There's heroin and all sorts of stuff. I mean, heroin in 1949 in a movie.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's no big deal now. Got drug dealers all the time in these crime sagas. But,
right.
So, yeah, he's literally searching all the slums, he tries to infiltrate the arms market. Remember, he's undercover here. He eventually locates a dealer who agrees to sell him a stolen gun. But when he arrests the dealer's girlfriend at the exchange, he is distraught to find out she doesn't know anything about his missing gun. So he got the wrong person here. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, talk about getting double humiliated. He gets the wrong person.
Oh, wow.
So he literally he tries to get the aid of a self-missed test-fired bullet retrieved in the tree trunk. And the police forensic firearms expert determines that his Colt was used to mug a woman of like 40,000 Japanese dollars. He teams up with a veteran detective, Takashi Shimura of Drunken Angel, and later on Seven Samurai. Mm-hmm. They were kind of a cool team.
Yeah.
The collaboration of those two actors. They really played off each other very well. And this is like not only the earliest example of a crime drama in Japan, but the buddy cop film kind of developed, I think, from this, because I can't think of any other movie prior to this where you get such a strong bond between two detectives. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not technically partners,
right?
But he needs to find his colt. It's his responsibility. That's the whole thing. It's like, oh, we'll give you another one. He's got to find it.
Yeah.
He has no weapon. That's the thing. That's the crazy thing about this movie. So he teams up with Takashi Shimura's character, and the guy knows how to deal with people. I mean, he's a veteran, so he skillfully asks the girl questions. Talk about the gun dealer who uses the alias of Honda because he's a fan of baseball, apparently. So they stake out this is like another early form of a stakeout. They have this local high attendance baseball game, and they literally like use the like announcer, thing to make announcements. They keep mentioning the guy's real name, then they mention Honda, and the guy's like, it's like, they got the guy, But they managed to lure the guy away from the crowd before taking him into custody. A rice ration card found on this person reveals the gun was loaned to a disenchanted war veteran who has become involved with the Yakuza to support himself. See, it's like opening Pandora's box. The more you find out, the more it gets dirty. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. World War II, Japan lost. So you got a lot of people that feel the same way. And both Kurosawa and Toshiro Mifune both served Japan in World War II. That's another thing to keep in mind. They weren't big fans of the war, and they just, especially Kurosawa, he didn't become revered until he made money for the studio.
Yeah.
So I mean, Stray Dog and Drunken Angel were somewhat successful, but Rashomon, the next movie, would really, he wouldn't have to worry for at least 2 decades after that.
Right.
But yeah, you've got the sister of the disenfranchised soldier, who happens to be one of the Yakuza associates, and he finds the guy's girlfriend, if you will, his sweetheart, who happens to be a showgirl. So there's a lot of Western influence, as you can see. This sounds like a movie that could have easily been made in America.
Yeah.
Which is, that's the genius of Kurosawa. And that's why I think a lot of, us Americans enjoy Kurosawa's films, is because he's so influenced by the West. I mean, Russia, he was a fan of Russian novels, and I think he loved Russian cinema too. And I mean, this is very unique for a Japanese filmmaker at this time to enjoy the West, because a lot of people were in Japan. It was pretty bitter. It was very bitter. And we were prejudiced towards the Japanese over in our country.
Right.
The Japanese prison camps and everything. So let's get back to, I'm getting kind of carried away here. So talk about his sister, the disenfranchised war veteran's sister, his girlfriend, who's a showgirl. And at this point, they're both kind of tired. And that's where the bond between these two detectives comes into play. Mm-hmm. Takashi Shimura invites Toshiro Mifune's character to his house to eat. So like they're having dinner. He gets to meet Takashi Shimura's family, and they really bond. They have a beer.
Yeah.
And then they find out that his gun is used again, this time to murder another woman during a robbery. So you've got at least a couple of murders here using Toshiro Mifune's Colt. Okay. So Mifune, Shimura, they both continue to question the girlfriend, the showgirl at her mom's house. She's reluctant to talk. So the veteran detective thinks he can trace the guy's movements, while Toshiro Mifune stays behind, hoping that the disenfranchised soldier's mom can persuade her to begin cooperating. So Takashi Shimura's character finds a hotel where the girlfriend is staying, he tries to call Toshiro Mifune's character. It's kind of a suspense-filled thing because the phone keeps ringing and ringing and ringing. And just as he's about to reveal, the location, I mean, finally he's able to connect with Toshiro Mifune's character, and he gets shot.
Yeah.
Takashi Shimura's character gets shot just as he's ready to reveal where he is. Mm-hmm. He gets shot. So he's like the third victim, but he's only wounded, come to find out. So yeah, you get all of this tense situations, and I've yet to seen anyone film an action sequence like Toshiro, like Kurosawa. So fast forward the following morning, the girlfriend has a change of heart and informs Toshiro Mifune that she called and asked to meet him at a train station so they can skip town, apparently. So, again, Toshiro Mifune's constantly, seems like he's running half the movie.
Right.
And they managed to get an ID on the disenfranchised soldier by taking into account his age. They find out he has a stained suit with mud. He's left-handed, and you literally see at the station, he's looking around the other people waiting, and he's looking and he's looking. You get these awesome edits and close-ups. Then you see the mud, and then the guy like, oh crap, and it turns into a panicked situation, and it goes on like this wicked chase. And the guy only has like 3 bullets left in the gun. And so he shoots, fires into the tree. I'm like, he's literally standing face to face with Toshiro Mifune now. Mm. So he shoots once, it misses him. Second time he hits Toshiro Mifune in the arm. And then like Mifune like lunges at him, and you're like, thank God he could have easily gotten shot.
Right.
But he shoots and it misses, and it fires into another tree, and it turns into this wicked, desperate struggle. And again, it looks so realistic because it's not polished.
Right.
Like an action movie nowadays, it'd be polished, but it's very realistic. They're kind of shaking, and they're, it's just, and all the while this is happening, you hear a children's choir. They're kind of outside, they're singing, and it's like, what a juxtaposition here with the singing and all this action going on. So yeah, he finally gets his gun back and everything like that. He gets commended for it, and I mean, he literally stopped like a Yakuza crime, and he bust open a whole gun racket and everything like that. So, and that's the thing, Takashi Shimura, they're because they're both wounded, they're both are recovering from their wounds. He's like, enjoy this time off, but look outside, look at all these houses. There's probably a crime that's being committed in one of those houses right now. That's how the movie ends. It's very, very realistic. And again, you get to see, we've been talking about the whole post-World War II vibe. Mm-hmm. I mean, he showed it with Drunken Angel, and we're talking about different things that are characters. There's like a mud bog in Drunken Angel that's a character in itself, and there's fog in Throne of Blood, and in this movie, it's the heat.
Right.
It's just the midsummer heat. So Stray Dog is my final pick for 1949. It's probably my favorite that year, although it's kind of neck and neck with Third Man. I can't pick which one is better, but those two are amongst my favorites of all time. And I know you love the Abbott Costello horror comedies. So what was your favorite film? If you have an absolute favorite from 1949, again, these are the ones that we've seen and that we've loved. So comment below, tell us your favorite from 1949 if you have one, or if you got suggestions and you want us to talk about something else. We take requests as well, don't we, Adam?
Yes, we do.
So let us know what you think. Comment below, subscribe, reach out to us through Facebook, Twitter, X. We're at Scared for Reels. Scared for Reels. We'll see you soon.